The soft glow of crystal chandeliers shimmered across polished marble floors inside Le Chateau Royal, a restaurant so exclusive that reservations were whispered about months in advance. Every table was draped in white linen, every glass placed with mathematical precision. It was a place built for power, wealth, and quiet dominance. Yet at one table near the center of the room, something deeply human and deeply uncomfortable was unfolding. 7-year-old Toby Bennett sat stiffly in his chair, his small feet dangling above the floor. His face was red, his breathing uneven, and tears streamed silently down his cheeks, dripping onto his untouched plate of gourmet mac and cheese. He tried to stop. He really did. He pressed his lips together, wiped his eyes with his sleeve, and stared hard at the table, as if willing the sadness away. But it kept coming. Wave after wave. Across from him sat his father, William Bennett, tech billionaire, CEO, and one of the most influential men in the city. At 39, William had built an empire from nothing. His name was etched on skyscrapers, his face splashed across business magazines. Investors listened when he spoke. Governments returned his calls. Yet none of that mattered tonight, because no matter how powerful he was in boardrooms, he was utterly helpless in front of his crying child. "Toby," William whispered, leaning forward slightly. His voice was controlled, but strained. "Please, people are staring. Just eat your dinner." Toby didn't answer. His shoulders shook harder. The investors seated beside William shifted uncomfortably. One glanced toward a neighboring table. Another checked his watch. This dinner was supposed to finalize a merger worth billions. Instead, it was being derailed by a grieving child who couldn't stop crying. William exhaled sharply and rubbed his forehead. His phone vibrated again. Emails, alerts, numbers demanding attention. The world never paused for him. Not even now. What William hadn't said aloud, he had barely allowed himself to think about, was that 3 days ago marked the 5th anniversary of Toby's mother's death. Elizabeth Bennett had died suddenly in a private plane crash. One moment she was there kissing Toby goodbye. The next, she was gone forever. Toby had been 4 years old enough to remember her voice, too young to understand why she never came back in the years since. William had thrown himself into work, believing success would protect his son. He hired the best tutors, the best security, the best doctors. But love, comfort, presence, those were harder to outsource from across the dining room. Amelia Rodriguez noticed the boy immediately. Amelia had worked at Le Chateau Royal for 3 years. At 28, she had mastered the art of invisibility, how to be polite without being noticed, attentive without being involved. She had served royalty, celebrities, and billionaires who barely acknowledged her existence. Disrespect was part of the job. Judgment came with the uniform. But something about the boy's quiet sobbing pierced straight through her. Amelia was a single mother herself. Her 6-year-old daughter Lucia had cried like that once late at night, asking why her father never called anymore. That same tight, aching sob, that same attempt to be brave while falling apart inside. Amelia picked up a tray and walked toward the table. "Is everything all right with your meals?" she asked gently. William didn't even look up from his tablet. "Everything's fine," he said curtly. "He's just tired." "Tired," Amelia swallowed. That wasn't tired. That was heartbreak. Breaking every unspoken rule of fine dining, Amelia slowly knelt beside Toby's chair. Nearby diners stiffened. A waitress kneeling? Unheard of. Risky. Unprofessional. "Hey," Amelia whispered softly, her voice warm. "Would you like me to ask the chef to make you a fresh plate?" "Extra cheesy." Toby shook his head. "That's okay," Amelia said. "Sometimes when my daughter feels sad, we play a game." Toby sniffed. "What game?" "We make up stories about people around us," Amelia said quietly. She nodded toward an elderly man dining alone. "See him. I think he's a secret astronaut who's walked on the moon." Toby looked up for the first time. "Really?" "Really," Amelia smiled. "And that lady over there? I bet she's running away from home because her pet tiger got too big." A tiny laugh escaped Toby before he could stop it. He pointed weakly. "That waiter," he whispered. "He's pretending to work here, but he's actually a superhero." Amelia laughs. Soft, genuine, human. "That's the best one yet. You're really good at this." For the first time that evening, a small smile appeared on Toby's face. William noticed. He looked up from his screen, startled by the sound. His eyes locked onto his son's face lighter. Kamaran then shifted to the waitress kneeling beside him. Their eyes met. For a moment, the noise of the restaurant faded. Something heavy settled in William's chest. "I should get back to work," Amelia said gently, standing up. "But if you need anything, just ask for Amelia." As she turned to leave, Toby reached out and grabbed her hand. "Thank you," he whispered. Amelia squeezed his fingers, then walked away, unaware that she had just changed everything. Later that night, as the restaurant emptied and staff began closing duties, William approached the mater d'. "Our server tonight," he said calmly. "Amelia." "Yes, Mr. Bennett." "She was kind to my son," William said. He placed his black card on the counter along with a business card. "Please give her this. And tell her to call me if she's open to a different opportunity." Across the room, Amelia wiped down her last table, mentally calculating rent, groceries, and how much she still needed for Lucia's upcoming birthday. Seattle was expensive. Life was unforgiving. When the mater d' called her into the office, her heart dropped. Had she crossed a line? He handed her an envelope. Inside was a tip so large her knees nearly gave out, along with a business card bearing one name: William Bennett, CEO. And on the back, a handwritten phone number. 3 days later, Amelia's phone rang, and nothing in her life would ever be the same. Amelia barely slept that night. She lay awake on the narrow couch in her small apartment, staring at the cracked ceiling while Lucia slept peacefully in the bedroom they shared. The envelope from the restaurant sat on the kitchen table, unopened now, but burned into her thoughts. The number on the back of the business card replayed in her mind over and over again, like a question she didn't dare answer. Why would a billionaire call her? Why her? Amelia had spent her entire adult life being overlooked, underestimated, and dismissed. Teachers had told her she was bright, but distracted. Employers praised her work ethic while denying promotions. Customers treated her like furniture, useful, replaceable, invisible. Nothing in her life suggested that powerful men noticed women like her unless it was too correct. Scold or ignore them. So when her phone rang 3 days later with an unknown number, her first instinct was not excitement. It was fear. "Ms. Rodriguez?" A crisp female voice asked. "Yes," Amelia replied. Stepping onto the sidewalk outside Lucia's school, "This is Patricia Winter's executive assistant to Mr. William Bennett. He was hoping you'd be available to come in for a meeting tomorrow morning." Amelia stopped walking. "A meeting?" She repeated. "About what exactly?" "Mr. Bennett prefers to explain in person," Patricia said smoothly. "A car will pick you up at 9. Will that work?" Amelia looked at Lucia, who was skipping ahead, laughing with her backpack bouncing behind her. "Yes," Amelia said quietly. "That works." Call ended before she could ask anything else. That night, after Lucia fell asleep, Amelia opened her laptop and searched William Bennett's name. The results were overwhelming. Articles described him as a visionary, a genius, a ruthless negotiator. Photos showed a tall, sharply dressed man with piercing blue eyes and an expression that rarely softened. One headline caught her attention: "Bennett refuses to hire another nanny after son's kidnapping scare." Amelia clicked. According to the article, a nanny hired through a private agency had once attempted to coordinate a kidnapping for ransom. The plot had been foiled, but the damage was permanent. Since then, William had fired all household staff and refused to trust anyone with his son. No mother, Amelia whispered to herself. No nanny. No one. The next morning, a black luxury sedan waited outside her apartment exactly at 9. The driver opened the door without speaking. Amelia adjusted her simple blouse, smoothed her thrift store blazer, and climbed in, her heart pounding. She had never been inside a car like this. The leather smelled expensive. The windows were tinted so dark she felt invisible to the world. Bennett. Technology's headquarters rose like a glass monument against the sky. Inside, Amelia felt every pair of eyes on her. Employees in tailored suits walked past without slowing. Their conversations filled with words like acquisitions, market dominance, and valuation. Amelia clutched her purse tighter. She had never felt so out of place. When she reached the executive floor, Patricia Winters greeted her with a professional smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Asterisk, Mr. Bennett will see you now. William stood when Amelia entered up close. He looked different from the photos. Tired, older, there were faint shadows. Beneath his eyes, signs of sleepless nights and emotional weight no amount of money could erase. Thank you for coming, he said. Please sit. Amelia sat stiffly. I'll be direct, William continued. My son connected with you the other night in a way he hasn't connected with anyone in years, Amelia swallowed. I was just trying to help. I know, William said. That's why I'm here. He paused. Toby doesn't need another employee. He needs stability, warmth, someone he can trust. Amelia's chest tightened. I'm not offering you charity, William said firmly. I'm offering you a job. What kind of job? Amelia asked carefully. William hesitated. A companion role. For Toby, structured hours. Excellent pay. Full benefits. Amelia's breath caught. You want me to? She stopped herself. I'm a waitress. A single mom? I don't have training. You have empathy? William said. That matters more. Amelia shook her head slowly. Sir, with respect. People like you don't hire people like me for roles like that. William leaned forward. People like me make mistakes because we think money solves everything. Amelia looked down at her hands. I need time, she said softly. Of course, William nodded. But no, the sigh will not pressure you. I will not control you. And if at any moment you feel uncomfortable, you walk away. When Amelia left the building, her head spun. Back at the restaurant that evening, her coworkers noticed something was different. You looked distracted. One server muttered, probably got yelled at by a customer, another joked. The head waiter, however, wasn't laughing. I heard you were pulled into the office the other night, he said coldly. You need to remember your place, Amelia. Customers aren't your friends, her place. Those words followed her home. The next day, Amelia accepted the job. When she arrived at the Bennett estate for the first time, security was tight. Guards scanned her, questioned her, searched her bag. Inside, the house felt enormous and empty. Toby waited in the living room, clutching a book. When he saw Amelia, his face lit up. You came, he said. I did. She smiled. Not everyone was pleased. William's sister Margaret arrived that afternoon. She took one look at Amelia and frowned. A waitress. Margaret scoffed. This is who you trust with my nephew? Amelia felt the judgment immediately. Margaret leaned down too. Toby, you deserve the best. Toby clung to Amelia's hand. William said nothing. That silence spoke louder than words. Amelia realized then this wasn't just about caring for a child. It was about proving that worth is not defined by status and the people who doubted her would soon regret it. Asterisk. The first few weeks inside the Bennett estate passed in a strange, fragile calm. Every morning, Amelia arrived early. Walking through halls so large they echoed with emptiness. The house was spotless, expensive, and cold, designed for prestige, not warmth. Toby spent most of his time alone in a sunlit room filled with toys he rarely touched. Security cameras watched every corner. Guards stood silently at doors, observing but never interacting. Yet somehow, in the middle of all that cold control, Amelia became Toby's safe place. She didn't push him to talk. She didn't overwhelm him with activities or therapy-style questions. She simply sat with him, listened to his stories, and let him grieve in his own way. Some days he talked about his mother endlessly. Other days, he said nothing at all. And Amelia stayed steady, patient, Kind. William watched from a distance. At first he told himself it was temporary. Just a solution. Just until Toby adjusted. But slowly, he began noticing changes he couldn't ignore. Toby laughed more. He slept better. He ate without being begged. For the first time in years, the house felt alive. That frightened William more than he expected, because it forced him to confront something painful. Was giving his son something he never had. Not everyone shared his quiet gratitude. Margaret Bennett made sure of that. She arrived unannounced one afternoon, heels clicking sharply across the marble floor. Her designer coat and icy expression made her presence impossible to ignore. "I still can't believe this," she said, eyeing Amelia from head to toe. "A waitress living under this roof?" Amelia kept her head down, folding Toby's drawings carefully. "I'm not living here," she said calmly. "I go home every evening." "For now," Margaret replied coldly. Toby stiffened beside Amelia. Margaret crouched in front of him. "Sweetheart, wouldn't you rather have a real professional? Someone trained?" Toby shook his head and grabbed Amelia's sleeve. Margaret straightened, her face tightening. "This is unhealthy, William," she said later. "You're letting your grief cloud your judgment." William didn't respond. Margaret leaned closer. "She's getting attached. And so is he. When this ends, it will break him." Amelia overheard every word that night. She cried quietly in her apartment, so Lucia wouldn't hear. The whispers didn't stop. Staff members spoke behind her back. Security watched her more closely than anyone else. One housekeeper muttered, "She won't last," loud enough for Amelia to hear. The judgment was constant. Then came the incident. One afternoon, Toby disappeared. Alarms went off. Guards rushed. William froze. Panic spread like wildfire. Amelia was the one who found him, curled up in the old garden shed, shaking and crying. He had overheard Margaret on the phone earlier saying Amelia would be gone soon. "I don't want you to leave," Toby sobbed. Amelia held him tightly. "I'm here," she whispered. "I'm not going anywhere." But that night, William called Amelia into his office. "We need to talk," he said quietly. Amelia braced herself. "Margaret thinks this arrangement is complicated," William said. Complicated. That word hit harder than any insult. "I understand," Amelia said softly. "I knew this wouldn't last forever." William looked conflicted. "I'm trying to do what's best for Toby." "So am I," Amelia replied, her voice steady, despite the ache in her chest. There was a long silence. "You can take tomorrow off," William said finally. Amelia nodded and left. That night, Toby cried himself to sleep, and Amelia wondered if kindness had once again cost her. Everything asterisk the day Amelia didn't come to the Bennett estate. The house felt different. Too quiet. Toby woke up early, padded into the kitchen, and stared at the empty doorway where Amelia usually appeared with a soft smile and a warm greeting. He waited. Minutes passed. Then an hour. "No, Amelia." By noon, Toby refused to eat. "I want her," he said, his voice trembling. William tried to distract him with toys, with promises, with gentle words, but nothing worked. Toby retreated into himself. The light that had slowly returned to his eyes. Dimming once again, William felt something crack inside his chest. That afternoon, he received a call from Toby's therapist. "Whatever changed recently," she said carefully, "it worked. And whatever you removed, please reconsider. Your son is redressing." William ended the call and stared at his office window, the city skyline stretching endlessly before him. For the first time in years, he asked himself a terrifying question. What if everyone else is wrong? And Amelia is right. Meanwhile, Amelia spent the day in her apartment, sitting beside Lucia on the couch. She smiled, laughed, and played, but inside, she felt hollow. She had promised Toby she wouldn't leave. And now she had. That evening, Margaret arrived at the estate again, this time confident. "I told you this would happen," she said. "Children get attached. This was inevitable." William looked at her. "No," he said quietly. This was avoidable. Margaret frowned. What are you saying? I'm saying I should have trusted my instincts instead of your prejudice. Margaret stiffened. Excuse me? William stood. You judged Amelia because of her job, her background, her lack of status, but you never once questioned her impact. Margaret scoffed. Impact doesn't equal qualifications. Neither does entitlement, William replied. That night, William drove to Amelia's apartment himself. No driver. No security. When Amelia opened the door, she froze. I'm sorry, William said immediately. I made a mistake. Tears filled Amelia's eyes. Toby needs you, he continued. And I think... So do I, the next morning, Amelia returned. When Toby saw her, he ran straight into her arms. Margaret watched from the doorway silent, furious, powerless. But karma wasn't finished. Days later, a board meeting brought unexpected guest child development experts, psychologists, and legal advisors. Margaret, eager to reassert control, spoke dismissively. This arrangement is inappropriate, she declared. This woman is unqualified. One psychologist stood up. Actually, she said, Ms. Rodriguez has unknowingly implemented trauma-informed care techniques that professionals spend years mastering. The room fell silent, another expert added. Her emotional intelligence is extraordinary. Margaret's face drained of color. William turned to Amelia. Would you consider formal training? He asked. Amelia nodded. Respect-real respect had finally arrived. The transformation inside the Bennett estate didn't happen overnight, but once it began, it was impossible to stop. For the first time since Elizabeth's death, the house no longer felt like a museum built to preserve wealth. It felt lived in. Laughter echoed through hallways that once carried only footsteps. Drawings appeared on refrigerator doors. Toy cars lined the edges of conference tables. William had once used for late-night calls, and at the center of it all stood Amelia. She never asked for authority, never demanded recognition. She simply showed up every day with patience, warmth, and a quiet strength that money could not buy. Toby flourished under her care in ways no expert report could fully capture. He spoke more openly. He slept through the night. He stopped flinching at sudden noises. Slowly, piece by piece, he began to feel safe again. William watched his son Chanjan in doing so. He changed too. He started leaving work earlier, canceling unnecessary meetings, sitting beside Toby at dinner instead of answering emails. For the first time, William allowed himself to grieve not alone, but with someone who understood loss without needing explanations. Amelia never tried to replace Toby's mother. She never pretended to be something she wasn't. She honored Elizabeth's memory by letting Toby talk about her, cry for her, miss her. And somehow, that honesty healed them both. But not everyone was ready to accept that healing. Margaret Bennett had never forgiven Amelia. To Margaret, respect was inherited, not earned. Power came from bloodlines, not compassion. And the idea that a former waitress, no pedigree, no connections, had become essential to the Bennett family felt like an insult. She could not swallow, so she plotted. She reached out to board members, whispered concerns, questioned Amelia's influence, suggested legal reviews, background checks, psychological evaluations. This situation is risky, Margaret insisted. Public perception matters. What she didn't expect was how prepared William had become. During a high-level board meeting, Margaret finally made her move. We need to discuss the liability issue, she said smoothly. This woman has unrestricted access to the heir of a billion-dollar empire. The room grew tense. William leaned forward calmly. Then let's discuss facts. He signaled toward the screen. Reports appeared, psychological evaluations, expert assessments, therapist testimonies, one by one. Professionals spoke. Ms. Rodriguez has demonstrated exceptional emotional intelligence. She has stabilized. Trauma-affected child without coercion, removing her would likely cause long-term psychological damage. Margaret's confident expression cracked. Then came the final blow. William stood. For years, he said evenly, I believed control equaled protection. I was wrong. Amelia gave my son what my wealth never could: presence. Silence filled the room, and from today forward, William continued, she is not an employee. She is family. Margaret's face drained of color. Public opinion shifted just as dramatically. When word leaked, not scandal. But truth the media didn't mock. They praised. Headlines focused on humility, healing, and humanity. Billionaire learns greatest lesson from single mother. Amelia was overwhelmed. She never wanted attention, never sought validation. All she wanted was to protect a child who reminded her of her own. Lucia noticed the change too. One night, she asked softly, Mama, did we do something good? Amelia hugged her tightly. Yes, Mia, we did. Months later, William made a decision that stunned everyone. He legally adopted Lucia, not out of charity. Out of love, two broken families became one. Margaret attended the ceremony in silence. Forced to watch the woman she dismissed stand tall, respected and loved, karma had spoken. Years later, Toby would remember that night at the restaurant not for the tears, but for the whisper that changed everything.